Well, my Craftsman drill press here, the motor went out on it, so let's replace it. All right, as I said, the motor went out on this thing about 5 years ago, and I've just casually been looking. It's a half horse, and haven't been too concerned because I have this Ryobi sitting right next to it. But this one is a larger drill press. This one's just a bench top. So I did take this off, I guess, 5 years ago. And so if we look, we started, I think I did that just so I could see what shaft size it was. And yeah, we're gonna need to, I think what we'll do, what we should be able to do maybe, is if we pull that off and just swing this thing, yeah, like that. So this is a half horse motor, and it is, let's see, let's look at the amp draw on it. Is that 8.7? Yeah, 8.7 amps. And let me show you what I found, and I'll tell you why it took 5 years to get a motor for it. Here's what we got. It's just a induction motor, probably made in China. Trying to see, it does not say, but judging by the look of it, I'm gonna say it screams made in China. Now, the reason I got it is because it was close to my house and it was cheap and it was working. So that fit the bill. We will put it on there and we will run it as long as it'll last. So I think it'll bolt right on, and it looked like it probably came off of a drill press. So let's swap it out, and we'll, like I said, we'll run it as long as it'll last. But I said why it took 5 years is because I was looking for, it wasn't a high priority because I had the other drill press, and I just wanted to find something. I didn't feel like driving across the city, and I figured one would pop up for a good deal, and it did. So we'll put it on there. We've got 4 bolts that hold this thing on. Those look like, what, 1/2 inch? Probably 9/16 actually. Nope, I was right, 1/2 inch. Thing in. I'm gonna find the cord. I haven't plugged it in 5 years. it's turning counterclockwise. Let me check my other drill press. It turns clockwise. All right, I got a mess because I've been tearing this thing apart. This motor, I'm putting much more effort into this thing than it's actually worth, but I'm determined to try to switch directions on it. I had to get the starter switch off and the bolt broke off, so I just drilled it out, re-tapped it. I've got a new bolt, a little set bolt, whatever you want to call it, ready to go in. And what I needed to do was get to the windings here. And what we've got is our start windings and our main windings. And you have your start capacitor is in on the start windings, and then your little switch here, once the motor gets up to speed, it slings out and takes the start windings out of the equation. So in theory, to reverse rotation of this motor, we should just need to switch the polarity, I guess if you want to call it, of the start winding in relationship to the main winding. So if you just switch polarity out here, you know, your hot and neutral, it switches both of them, you know, your start winding and main winding, which will not reverse polarity. You need to reverse the polarity of the start winding for the magnetic field to reverse, if that makes sense. So what I've done here is identify the start winding. So we know our start capacitor is on the start winding, which is originally was the gray wire. I've already actually swapped this one. So the gray wire right in there, if you can see. That gray wire right there was hooked up to the yellow that goes to the start capacitor. And in this wire terminal, we had yellow and then our black coming from our switch box. You know, that's our feed in. And then we had our red tied in with it. And then the gray was over to the start capacitor. So what I had to do is isolate the red and the yellow and check for continuity, check ohms, between that gray wire and yellow and red to see which one was the other end of our start winding. And what I found was the red wire is what had continuity between the gray wire. And like I said, we know our gray wire comes over here, and if you actually look, there's not much we can see here, but we can see that blue is hooked up to that larger terminal, the larger winding. So we know our blue right there is our main winding. So if we wanted to, we could check continuity between blue and yellow, and we should have continuity, but we don't need to do that. We knew blue was anyway because it's coming off to the wire that goes over to the start capacitor, if that makes sense. Now, your little switch here, what it does, centrifugal switch, where's the other part to it? This motor is rough, but at this point, I'm just trying to, see, it's all rusty. I'm just trying to prove a point here. So this is a little centrifugal switch. as it speeds up, these sling out and it pulls that down. And what that does is there's a little spring plate, if we can find it. All right, so here's that plate. So those two screw into here, and what happens is they are not connected, you can see, but when this is on, so they default to spring open. But when this is like that, it pushes on that plate just like that. So it's pushing on that, and when this gets up to speed, those weights sling out and it pulls that down, which puts this in that position with it open, and it takes the start windings out of series or out of the circuit. That's how that works. So this like I said, this motor is rough. We will probably, if this works, we will use it, but I don't have much hope that it will survive too long. It's cheaply made, and as you can see, it has sat outside. It has gotten wet. It has also been dropped, and I am repairing 2 cracks I found on it. And I did not drop this thing, but it has got, I think it's got a crack. I think we can take this off. I think our JB weld has set up enough. It's got a crack from this bolt hole. Not only is this bolt hole kind of broke out, but it's got a crack that runs all the way to the edge. So I have kind of JB welded that, and we will have to drill a new hole right there. And is this one set up enough that we can, yeah, we can pull this out too. And it is cracked. Across there. Like I said, I did not do that. It was like that when I got it. So what I have done is just built that up, and we can trim this up a little bit, make it look a little better, but that's not going to interfere with anything, and hopefully that ties that piece back together. We'll see. I don't know. It would have survived okay with just the 2, but we'll give it a fighting chance and do that. So let me get this thing back together. I don't see really any other issues with it. It's, like I said, it's rough. Let me drill this hole out and clean that up just a little bit. Get this thing reassembled, and we'll see if I've successfully reversed rotation on this thing. The bearings feel okay, so at least that's good. But you can see it's been wet before. But maybe it didn't get in the bearings. So I'll put it back together. We'll see if it works. All right, I'm gonna wait to put the cover on. Got some blue Loctite on that set bolt there. All right, so this works. This thing should turn clockwise. So we should have the shaft turning like that. Like that. Prior, it went that way, which would mean we would be drilling backwards. Our drill bit would be turning backwards. If you're curious, it's because this is not the drill press we're putting on, but motor turns this way, and this is clockwise, and you see our chuck turning and our other motor turned this way. So that would have been our chuck backwards. So if we have success, we should be turning clockwise. All right, let's turn our power strip on. And we're clockwise. Awesome. You can see that starter, that centrifugal switch in action here. You see it slings out and then it pops back. Awesome. So not only did we get it back together and it still works, we achieved what we were looking to do. So I will say, if you're trying to do one of these that has, you know, a start winding and a main winding, typically on a good quality motor that is reversible, under the switch cover, it will have wires you can flip. And it does the same thing as what we did. This is just a cheapy motor, and they didn't care to do any of that. And so they just wired it internally and wired it whatever direction they needed it to turn. They needed it to turn for whatever application this came off of. They needed it to turn counterclockwise, and that's how they wired it. So yeah, we opened it up and flipped the polarity on the start winding only, because that's how you reverse the magnetic field. You cannot just swap the wires, the hot and neutral out here, because it swaps the hot and neutral on the start winding and the main winding, which will still result in it turning the same direction it was already turning. You have to reverse the polarity on only the start winding. So that's what we did. Hopefully I explained that well. The other thing I did is I found a larger nut, correct nut, just a larger diameter, that I put in this busted out position. I already told y'all I put blue Loctite, I think I did, on that set screw there, bolt that we're using as a set screw. And yeah, so I will put this thing on my drill press and hopefully it will work well for us. Like I said, it's a cheap motor. I never should have bought it, to be honest with you. I should have just held out for a better quality one, but as cheap as I got this thing, I figured it was worth a shot, and we will run it as long as it will survive. The other thing I need to note real quick is on some motors, they tie together in the winding, they tie together the start winding and the main winding. If they do that, you'll typically only have like 3 wires coming out of the windings. This one we had 4, so that indicated to me that they were separate and they were tying them together outside, where we had the red and yellow and our black wire all tied together. That was where they were tying them together. So as long as you can isolate I'm no electrician, so disclaimer here, this is not for educational purposes. This is for entertainment purposes only. You know, if you're going to do something, do at your own risk and find someone who's an electrician as your source. So yeah, take that with a grain of salt. So we'll continue this back at the drill press and get this thing installed. storming outside, but moment of truth. Looks pretty good. Motor doesn't sound the best, but like I said, it was cheap. We'll run it as long as we can. I'll show you the belt setup real quick. So there's our belt setup. Actually, we need to, there we go, tighten that up a little bit. But basically, you can adjust this to tighten the belt up. You can push on the motor, flip this down, and change your belt. I had put the pulley on backwards. If you notice that at first, your pulleys go opposite. And I typically leave my drill press in the slowest speed possible, which that's 380 RPMs in that mode. And that's just better for drilling metal, which is pretty much all I drill, or most of what I drill. So it's good to have this drill press back. Now, like I said, this motor is pretty noisy. It is not the best motor, but I think it should hold out for a little while for us. That start winding is noisy. Overall though, I mean, I think it'll work well. And cover that back up. And I just put a little tape around that to just help the cord at that bend, help support it. All right, I guess we can take this out. I was using this to test valve springs, the spring pressure. I put a bathroom scale on here, and I was using this at a set distance to check valve spring pressure. Whatever works, right? So, all right, and there's our Ryobi that's been filling in on the job for the Down Craftsman. So it's good to have this thing working again. It's a good drill press. And I will just keep my eye out for another a better quality cheap motor, a good deal on a better quality motor, just to have on the shelf for when this one fails. Because I think in our case, this is not a if this one will fail, it's a when will it fail type scenario. So that's going to do it for this one. Again, do it at your own risk. If you're taking electric motors apart and changing wires around, at your own risk. No liability here. Thanks for watching. Leave a comment down below, hit the like button, and subscribe for more.